And greetings. Happy, what day is it? Tuesday. Thank you. The days are they're running together right now, man. I mean, getting up at 6 a.m. to do C-SPAN, 6 a.m. the next day to do Newsmax, and the days are running together. But it's a good problem to have when you've got a best-selling book. You even get reviewed in Sri Lanka. I don't know, did you see that this morning?
I did.
And it's a really good review.
Huge in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
Sri Lanka, actually, according to that dude, sounds like a pretty nice place to live, at least when it comes to coronavirus mitigation.
Indeed. Yeah. Measures. So that review, Omar Khan was his name. So if you're tuned in, brother, thank you very much. As we continue to roll, even though we are getting throttled, to borrow a term from National Review, which found out that what we have talked about privately amongst ourselves for the last few days, but I didn't really want to bring it up because I felt like, there's a lot worse examples of big tech censorship than dropping my book from number 1 to number 5 or whatever. All right. But yes, so many of you have been emailing us for the last few days. And yes, they're making it harder for you to search for the book. We noticed it as well. We talked about it, but then we just had so many other things going on with book promotion. But yeah, that's a thing. So when you go to Amazon.com, you better type in Faucian Bargain all the way, or just type in my name. Although some of you have told me typing in my name won't bring you the book either. All right.
Well, so typing in Faucian Bargain all the way, literally the video that I showed yesterday of the screen capture, it changes it after you enter to Faucian Bargain, after you already hit enter.
And it's also funny where you end up, it's not even just books, you end up like getting furniture and things like this.
Yeah, so I don't know, maybe the largest corporation in the world just suddenly sucks at their search engine. You think that could be it?
No.
Yeah, I don't think that's it either. Oh, by the way, greetings. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show. You just joined us in the middle of our coffee talk here amongst ourselves. I'm Steve Deace. Todd Erzin is here, as well as Aaron McIntyre. If you'd like to join us today, let us know what you think about what we think. Steve@stevedeace.com. That's how you can email the program. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Steve Deace Show. That's DEACE. Also, look for us at the free speech alternatives there for Steve Deace on Parler, Gab, and MeWe. And if you're looking for clips of the program, this was not an example of big tech censorship. We made this decision yesterday at youtube.com/Steve Deace. They'd already put a strike on our show for telling the truth about Anthony Fauci. So we made the preemptive decision to take down the full C-SPAN interview because a lot of the same factual information that they struck before is in that interview. So that was not YouTube censorship. We made that decision editorially here locally. We took it down in order to avoid a second strike, but you can still get that full assault on Karen Stan that is still up on the C-SPAN website. The link is pinned to the top of my Twitter page, or just go to rumble.com/Steve Deace Show. It's there too. No censorship there at rumble.com/Steve Deace Show. All right, coming up on the show today, wisdom at times, prophesying at times, comes from the least likely places. Later today for Pop Culture Tuesday, we're kind of going back now for family movie night every now and then and watching something that we enjoyed when the kids were little, just for some nostalgia, okay? And so we went back on Sunday, and it's the first time I'd seen it all the way through in several years, and rewatched the original Lego movie. Wow. I mean, that movie prophesied. I mean, it wasn't just laugh out loud, funny at times, extremely clever, but there was some prophesying in that film. We're going to talk about that coming up for Pop Culture Tuesday. Next hour, some of you may have seen this video. It went viral, made it on Fox News and several other national outlets from right here in our backyard in Des Moines. A community activist that we've introduced you to before, Will Keeps, who's working on real unity, both socioeconomically, racially here in our community. He put out a video with a member of the Des Moines Police Department. It's offending all of the right people. So we'll talk to the two individuals that put that music video out coming up in the next hour of the show. Tomorrow, or next segment, I should say. See, I'm already wanting to skip ahead days. Next segment for Fake News or Not. We're going to try to help you answer some of the common objections, because I've heard from so many of you that are sending this out to pastors, leaders, your supervisors at work, people in your state legislature and your community leadership, own family and members and friends who are just caught up in this web of Faucian deception. And so you're probably starting to get some pushback. We wanted to help prepare you for that pushback. We're going to do that for Fake News or Not at the bottom of the hour. But before we get to all of that, here is Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by Mask Holes on Parade. Spirit Airlines is at the butt end of yet another controversy involving a toddler who didn't wear a mask. This time on a flight from Orlando to Atlantic City, a family of 4, including a pregnant mother, a special needs child, and a 2-year-old child, along with the entire plane, was deboarded after the 2-year-old was found to be eating without her mask.
She's just turned 2 a month ago.
I understand.
It's 5 and up. What is she? I'm trying to wear it. She keeps
Okay, I'm going to call the police. Have them.
No problem. I've got my lawyer on the case.
The family was given a warning before being allowed back on the flight by Spirit Airlines, who says it was actually the parents and not the 2-year-old who were not abiding by the mask policy, a direct contradiction of the video in question. And then there's this. An undated video surfaced recently of a woman who berated a food delivery person for not wearing her mask correctly.
My girl here wants me to come out of the elevator so she can come out of the elevator.
Because it's a small space, we're supposed to maintain social distancing. I don't understand why you can't just politely step out to allow me out of the elevator when I asked you nicely while you have been wearing your mask.
You didn't ask me nicely. You said get the out the elevator.
I said that after you refused
No.
to get out. You have a giant ball.
Is this incorrectly worded?
It wasn't like that the whole time.
A reminder that this woman was there ostensibly delivering food so that this other hysterical little girl could stay in her residence, possibly forever. Of course, the insolent fiends in the previous 2 videos are only upset merely because they know masks actually work. And places like Texas, who lifted their mask mandate and capacity restrictions at restaurants just about a month ago, is now a smoldering pile of ash. Oh. Dr. Fauci, your thoughts?
You know, it can be confusing because you may see a lag and a delay because often you have to wait a few weeks. I'm not really quite sure. It could be they're doing things outdoors. It's very difficult to just one-on-one compare that. We've been fooled before by situations where people begin to open up, nothing happens, and then all of a sudden, several weeks later, things start exploding on you.
Speaking of Texas, the Texas Rangers hosted the first American event in over a year without capacity restrictions yesterday, and it's kind of a beautiful sight, we guess. More on that later. Not to worry, though. Dr. Fauci says this will be the event that's sure to be the beginning of the end of the newfound freedom from the scary virus Texas has enjoyed.
You know, you see the pictures of the Texas Rangers Stadium essentially crowded. You're really taking a pretty big risk if we can just hang in there a bit longer, because every day that we hang in there and not just give in to getting away from all restrictions, every day we do better and better.
Back to baseball. Texas Governor Greg Abbott was scheduled to throw out the opening pitch for the Rangers yesterday, but he announced he declined the invitation out of protest against Major League Baseball's decision to move their All-Star game out of Georgia because the state passed a law ostensibly making it harder for Democrats to steal elections. Quote, "It's shameful that America's pastime is being influenced by partisan politics." The MLB has found a new home for their All-Star game, reportedly, Colorado, who has more restrictive voting laws than Georgia. Moving on, but not really. Damn, we just can't quit Dr. Fauci, who has at least one cheerleader in the Senate, a Republican. We'll give you 3 guesses as to whom.
I think he's the principal person we've relied on. We have to take advice from somebody, and for myself, looking at his history and background, he's the most reliable witness I've seen.
Learning Chinese today. Today's phrase is, "We need to repeal Mitch McConnell, root and branch."
我们需要废除 Mitch McConnell 的根和分支。
And now would be a good time to take a ride in the Wayback Machine. There's this story from The Hill, March 10th, 2020. GOP senators tell Trump to make Fauci face of government's coronavirus response. The story goes on to explain how unnamed GOP senators pressured the White House to utilize Fauci more publicly, saying Mike Pence wasn't getting the job done. I wonder who those senators were. Moving on for real this time, and on the topic of murder, it seems you can now get away with it. Remember that one time the NBC affiliate in Denver, Colorado hired a security guard, in air quotes, to protect the camera crews during coverage of Black Lives Matter violence last fall, and how that unlicensed, and yes, that was something that was not reported at that time, unlicensed guard named Matthew Doloff murdered a Trump supporter in cold blood? Well, he's had his arraignment delayed for at least a second time, meaning he's still out on bond for the foreseeable future. In Washington, D.C., 2 black teenagers who murdered a Pakistani immigrant and Uber Eats driver while attempting to steal his car have reached a plea deal. The suspects, 13 and 15 years old, were charged with the murder of 66-year-old Muhammad Anwar. The deal would ensure that the 2 minors will not be held until they reach the age of 21 or be placed in a prison facility. We're approximately 11 stories into today's montage and 20 stories into this week's montages, and have you noticed a glaring omission? Just to illustrate how effective the art of memory holding has become, I forgot to put this story in yesterday's montage, and I just now remembered to put it in today's. On Friday, the U.S. Capitol was placed on lockdown after a car crashed into a security barrier where 2 Capitol police officers were standing. A man got out of the car with a knife before he was shot by the police. 1 police officer died from his injuries, as did the suspect, 25-year-old Noah Green, a follower of Louis Farrakhan's Nation of Islam. Get this, authorities still say they're searching for a motive. And now an update on the southern border. You know, I heard this rumor they detained 2 men from Yemen at the southern border. Let's do a Google search for this. 2 Yemeni men. Okay, here's a result from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Seems like a pretty good source. Access denied. Oh, well, I guess it never happened. And finally, if you're a fan of football, you may remember the NFC Championship game from earlier this year between the Green Bay Packers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Packers, of course, made the controversial, stupid decision to kick an inconsequential field goal from the 8-yard line with just over 2 minutes left in the game, handing the ball back over to Tom Brady. Of course, the Packers lost that game, and one person who'd probably like to have you forget that episode is Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers, who's guest hosting the game show Jeopardy this week.
Scott, did you come up with the correct response? Who wanted to kick that field goal? That is a great question. Should be correct, but unfortunately for this game today, that's incorrect, and you're going to lose 0.
And that's what happened while we were away.
That's the greatest Final Jeopardy answer of all time, or at least since Cliff Clavin. Risked it all. What was the category, do you remember, on Cheers? Wasn't it like postal regulations or something? He's like way ahead. He's way in first place. And like the category is like postal regulations or something. Remember, he was a postman, and he puts it all down and he blows it or something at the end, I think is how it went. I mean, that's some, and props to Aaron Rodgers, by the way, who, let's face it, has a reputation, a bit of a prickly reputation, right?
And rightly so.
And he has earned it. He has earned that rep, but he handled that about as smoothly as possible. So props to him for that. Aaron's montage brought to you by our friends over at Omega XL. You know, whether it's back, knees, neck, shoulder pain, you know, for me, it is the lift or the left hip flexor. The underlying cause, unless you're dealing with an injury right now in the immediate, if that's the case, go get medical help. But if it's one of those nagging chronic things, the underlying cause is likely inflammation, and you got to defeat that inflammation or it can cause permanent damage. And you're looking for something that does more than those pain relievers or topical rubs. They help maybe get you through the day by masking the symptoms, but they don't deal with the real problem. And that's why you're looking for a product like Omega XL. Backed by 35 years of clinical research, it attacks the inflammation that is causing your pain. I use this product as part of my regular regimen as well, so I would highly recommend it. If you're suffering aches, pains, stiffness of the chronic variety, you need to try Omega XL, and right now we're going to let you try it. Order 1 bottle right now, get a second one for free. Buy one, get one free when you go to omegaxl.com/Steve. Buy one, get one free today at omegaxl.com/Steve, or give them a call at 800-844-4888. That's 800-844-4888. I think it was Solzhenitsyn. I can never pronounce the name right. That said Solzhenitsyn, thank you. That said this about the Soviet Union. They're lying. We know they're lying. They know that we know they're lying. And yet they continue lying anyway. We have reached that stage with Anthony Fauci. The bluff has been called. And to show you how far he is off of his talking points, he didn't even acknowledge that you had to wear a mask to show up at the sold-out Rangers Stadium yesterday. He's off his off his meds. See, a few months ago, well, maybe longer. Let's say at this time in the fall, he still would have had enough control over this narrative that he would have pivoted to, well, I think that's really dangerous. It's a little premature for that, but thankfully they're all wearing masks, and we know that masks work, right?
Yes.
He didn't even have time to lie about that because it's slipping away. The narrative the reach has exceeded the grasp here. The bluff has been called. Now, it should have been called a long time ago. But we can't do anything about that now. We can't do anything about last year now. All we can do is just not let last year ever happen again. Right? We can't do anything about that. Can't change the past. Hopefully, though, we can learn from it. But the bluff has been called. Where is your faith in your masks? Do they work or not? If they do, then what was wrong with what Texas did yesterday? Right?
Right.
If they protect you better than the vaccine, if the mask is indeed the tool of of deliverance, then the real complaint is that we weren't doing what Texas was doing a long time ago. So the only reason to be concerned about what happened yesterday is if the mask doesn't work. And then if the masks don't work and we don't see a massive spike in the Arlington area of Texas here in the next few weeks, what does that say about any of your regulations? Remember the social distancing regulation. Even Scott Gottlieb, who's been a complete and total hack during this entire process, despite the fact there are some people in our business that continue to promote him, but he's a hack, has been a hack from day one. He's now admitting to you that they literally just made up the social distancing thing, literally out of thin air. That the 6 feet thing literally just got made up. Remember, he said that yesterday or last week.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's flat earth voodoo. That's a rain dance. Where did rain dances, moon dances come from? Some shaman somewhere said, if you do this, Dormammu will deliver. Oh, all right, sound great. Hey, boo-boo, smarter than the average bear. All right, I mean, that's where they come from. And that's essentially what social distancing was. It was a moon dance. And I read it somewhere, somebody else read it somewhere, somebody else read it somewhere, and someone with a title said, yeah, do that. And so everybody just, yeah, do this. It doesn't work either. But see, they're losing control of the narrative here. First of all, look, what was the network he was getting asked about this on? CNN. It's not even safe for Anthony Fauci to go on CNN now.
Even worse, it was MSNBC.
Oh, was it MSNBC? That's right. CNN was where they asked him about the issue before with the schools. That's where he got
Let's not fight for it. They're both terrible.
That's
We're
true.
good.
Yeah, thank you. So it's not safe for him on either one of those channels. No, the narrative is gone. This is the time to press the advantage. This is some straight up BS. Just straight up. We're just malevolently BSing now, man. We're just making stuff up. Well, it's hard to know. Hard to know. A year later, when we have all the data now, we don't need anything from China. We have all of our own. And we have a 1.8% case fatality rate, which is a 0.18% infection fatality rate when you factor in the asymptomatic. Median death age of 78. 80% of the people that were hospitalized for COVID, morbidly obese. We know. No. What he means is it's getting harder to lie. Anthony Fauci is lying. We know Anthony Fauci is lying. Anthony Fauci knows that we know that he knows that he's lying. And yet Anthony Fauci continues to lie anyway. And it's going to be very fascinating here in the coming weeks where you're hearing this talk of cases, new cases. You know where this is happening. In all the places that they did exactly what Anthony Fauci said to do. Lockdowns don't work. They don't work. But they do kill. I'm sure you have some thoughts on this.
Well, read all about it. Number one, I've done this several times today on Twitter in reaction to other facets of this. Told you. I can't stress enough. It doesn't need to be said because we can do anything about it. It needs to be said because to beat this cult, we have a civil war against, and we do. We have got to acknowledge that we had the information to do the right thing, not just regarding Fauci, but this virus and this country and how to survive this. We had it a year ago. Our elites, our experts are deeply, deeply wanting, which is why when I say do not ever allow yourself to believe that going back to normal means that there's a normal to go back to. I get why we just don't want certain hassles anymore. I don't want those either. But I immediately, and I mean immediately, once that hassle goes on, you need to pick up the next one because they're going to choke the life out of you with something. It's what that gal in the elevator.
Yes.
They're everywhere.
That's a cult.
They're teaching you.
That's a cult.
They're professors. They are in government. She's not unique. She's everywhere.
Yes, she is. She is, again, to borrow an expression used in a even better selling book, Legion. She's Legion. She's insane. That's, you read about wailing, gnashing of teeth, and you read stuff in the Bible about people cutting themselves, or you read about ancient pagan religious rituals. That's what it looks like.
Because progressivism isn't a political movement. What
That's
is
right.
it? What
It's a religion. It's the rival religion. It is the spirit of the age in which we live. It is the rival spirit of the age religion that has arisen to replace the Judeo-Christian bedrock of Western civilization. Two worldviews are walking into that steel cage, folks, and only one's coming out. I promise you. Only one is coming out. And you're not getting a religious conscience clause. All right?
Yeah,
it's going to be that one or ours. Nothing in between.
Burn your
Nothing.
Coexist bumper sticker.
That's exactly right.
I've listened to you for far too long, Steve, I think, because 5 minutes after I tweeted the exact version of the Solzhenitsyn tweet, you did as well. And then I was going to go right to the part where Elijah, after calling the prophets of Baal's bluff, I was going to read that part. It approached midday, and they shouted even louder, and they sliced themselves with swords until the blood flowed, as was their custom. That's what this is.
Yes, it is.
Texas and Florida. It's easy to memory hold one state, but it's hard to do it when more start to join the fray, like it is in Texas. What you just saw there from Fauci, as you alluded to, Steve, this was the shouting even louder. This was the slicing themselves with swords until the blood flowed. That's
I don't know.
What you're seeing.
Baal will show up sooner or later.
Yep.
I mean, I know Baal will just sit here sooner or later. Baal will show up. I know Baal will show up. That's essentially what that is. Now, we have been hard at times in the last year, especially on Texas Governor Greg Abbott. All of them we believe deserved. He deserves credit for what he did yesterday. You know, it's a symbolic gesture, but that doesn't mean it doesn't pack a punch at the exact same time, because he allowed his office. In a way, it's similar to when Trump early in his presidency started talking about the March for Life, protest before he had actually attended it. But the fact that he talked about it forced the media to discuss something that they had largely ignored for 30 years, right?
Yeah.
All right. So it was symbolic, but it carried some significance alongside of it. By the governor of Texas now throwing that out there as his rationale for why he is not going to discuss, or why he's not going to throw out the first pitch, it forces some media platforms to continue to cover the issue, because they want to bury this issue now too. Everybody and their mother. Yeah, I've told you guys for years, sports media, every bit as left, but twice the dumb. They're just as biased, but they're not nearly as smart as the mainstream media. And so it's just even more banal, vapid sloganeering. Okay. And so once the Washington Post came out and fact checked the Biden administration's claims over this, their own essentially concordance, fact-checked their own exegesis and found their hermeneutic to be flawed, they all want to forget about it now and just kind of move on because they stepped on a rake. Abbott doing that yesterday kept this story alive yesterday and rubbed their noses in it all the more. So it's symbolic, yes, but there's significance there. But I would also say now to the governor of Texas, that's a great first step, but that's all that it is. You need to go into your state now. These entities need to be threatened and then punished for ever doing this, trying it ever again. They will be punished. My children know there are two things do not do. Do not lie to me. Don't make me a fool. Don't lie to me. Do not disrespect your mom. Notice how my tone of voice just changed?
Sure.
It's not even anger, is it? It's just a straight up serious come to Jesus if these things happen. You go to wish someone else was your daddy. I'm not mad. I'm not angry. It is what it is. You did the crime, so I will deliver you the time. Period. That's it. And that message has been delivered. Now they have routinely done all the other things wrong. Right? But you can't do that with everything. You got to give them some rope, right? But there's some red lines you just don't let people cross. And the governor of Texas now needs to set another example. Take this to the next logical step and say, you will not be granted the awesome privilege of doing business here in the free state of Texas by behaving this way. Period. End of sentence. Send your ass back to California where it belongs.
And along those lines, because you addressed the matter yesterday, you know who should have that attitude right now? The small black business owner in Atlanta. I had no idea the demographics were that different.
Yeah.
Atlanta, 51% black.
Yeah.
Did you see what Denver is?
It's
9.
Yeah, there's very small black population in Denver, Colorado. Yeah. There's actually a higher Hispanic population there than there is a black population.
They should be talking about marching through Atlanta and burning it down.
And if you've spent some time down there, I've spent a lot of time down there. There is a lot of black-owned businesses. Yeah. There is a thriving black middle class in those areas. They got the shaft, and Stacey Abrams is who did it to them. Ultimately, she's a victim of her own success, I guess we will say. But what the governor of Texas needs to do here now is that is a powerful symbolic gesture. Not every symbolic gesture is empty. There's lots of, the Emancipation Proclamation, in many respects, was a symbolic gesture from a policy standpoint. It still carried an immense amount of potency, right? About what that significance of that symbol meant. The governor of Texas now needs to take the next step here and draw a line in the sand and say, here in the free state of Texas, you will not be permitted to make money off our freedom with this kind of behavior. Take your ass back to California and their 70% top marginal tax rates where it belongs. And don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. I'll hold it open for you, in fact. That's what needs to happen now. Punishment, pain needs to be felt. No mercy. We all know the detrimental impact of too much screen time for kids, whether it's the actual content that they're exposed to online or just the shortening of attention spans, the loss in creativity. That's why we need better ways for our children and grandchildren to use their downtime. And that's why we want to tell you about Annie's Kit Clubs. They've got the perfect subscription box for both the boys and the girls. For the boys, the Young Woodworkers Kit Club. It's a monthly subscription that puts real tools into his hands, starting with that great kid-sized hammer that every dude wants. Every month, your child will receive an all-in-one woodworking kit with the materials and tools they need to make an awesome woodworking project with minimal supervision. And for the girls, Annie's Creative Girls Club sends you 2 fun craft projects every month, complete with easy-to-follow instructions that will kickstart her creativity through painting, beading, and more. Help your kids to develop actual skills that they can, use in the real world, and new crafting techniques that help them express their creativity. And it makes a great gift for the kids, grandkids. Annie's Kit Clubs, ANNIES, Annie's kitclubs.com/Steve. If you go there today, you'll get 75% off your first shipment. That's a big discount at Annie'sKitClubs.com/Steve. Again, Annie'sKitClubs.com/Steve. So, with so much of our audience, remember, before we even got on Tucker and everything else, I mean, that's what shot us to #1 for a second time. But, we had, just a 15-minute appearance on the Great Glenn Beck program. And then all of you shot this book to #1 overall in the country on first launch. And a lot of it is because of how many of you have been sending this around, copies to family members, friends, people of your churches, schools, businesses, etc. So we are imagining that about now, you're beginning to get some feedback and maybe some pushback. And pushback is totally fine. I mean, we've often said in our show, we're not here to win arguments as often as we are to start them, right? We don't argue enough. Just trolling somebody and calling them a name and then owning them with name calling on a social media account isn't an argument. All right, that's not a debate. Like a real argument where we actually find out what people think, they find out what you think, and then you go back and forth on who's thinking the best. That's like a real argument, right?
Correct.
So you might be getting some pushback from some of the people that you've shared the book with so far. So for Fake News or Not this week, we thought we would help you tackle what we kind of anticipated would be, your top 5 objections that you might be seeing from people that are maybe seeing some of this information and thought process for the first time. Let's begin with what is probably the most common one. How can the authors presume to know more about coronavirus than Anthony Fauci? Right? And that's fair, right? Here's the thing, though. If you read the book, we don't. That's why we cited so many other competing experts. Wouldn't you want to know what they think? Are you not permitted to get a second opinion from your own doctor when you're given a dire diagnosis? I mean, I would imagine if you're a guy and you got there's a dreaded lump on your scrotum diagnosis, before you said, all right, let's go ahead and remove that, you're probably going to want to get a second opinion on that. Todd, thoughts?
Yeah.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah.
Or are you just going to go ahead and run home, honey? I've got some very bad news, right? I mean, you're probably going to get a second opinion just to make sure, removing some of your scrotum is really necessary, right? Or anything else of seriousness. If there's a lump in your breast, heaven forbid. They're talking about maybe a breast removal. Probably want to get a second opinion on something like that. I don't understand why we don't want a second opinion. All the answers to that question are bad. We've had a lot of the same physicians. My wife's had the same OBGYN for 20 plus years. We've gotten second opinions numerous times. In fact, any good doctor would tell you and wouldn't feel threatened by you getting a second opinion. So what's wrong with hearing from counter experts? Wouldn't you like to hear what they have to say? And does the real-time data show that the counters to Anthony Fauci are more accurate than he is? So we don't debate Anthony Fauci in this book. We cite others from esteemed institutions like Oxford, Yale, Harvard, Carnegie Mellon, Rockefeller University, some of the leading Stanford, leading universities not just in this country but in the world in the case of Oxford. We let them do the debating. If it weren't for them, we wouldn't have written this book. If there wasn't so many counter experts out there saying this won't work and then the data shows their criticism was right all along, it doesn't work, would we have ever written this book?
No, never.
We would have never presumed to sit here and believe we can debate him. We're actually watching and letting other people do that. Another common objection.
Can I really quickly? Well, also, Steve, and this is not going to come as a surprise to you, but why isn't this a two-way street? Because if we want to talk to the experts, the medical experts, still, if you look up in various psychological and medical diagnoses about transgenderism, gender dysphoria, mental disorders, right? Yet you just get to say that I'm a transgender, whatever, Aaron, lizard, whatever, and we all have to take it as gospel. Why is this not a two-way street? You get to denounce whatever you want to in the name of the collected expertise of 2,000 years of history of Western civilization anytime you want to, and we have to kneel before Zod. Answer that riddle to me. You don't even need to get into the specifics of the question you're talking about. Just try having a consistent standard, please.
Can I add one more thing to this? Sorry.
Of course.
I think that objection, it's tempting to see this objection coming from specifically leftists, but I think this comes from a lot of people who are just really, really wishy-washy about not wanting to admit what happened actually happened. So
yes.
I think that's actually the majority of probably where this comes from.
Yes. All right. A second common objection that you may receive. I just don't believe the system, the government, the media, I just don't believe they would have lied about all of this.
Cue your best laughing gif.
Yeah. I mean, the Tuskegee Airmen agree. They can't believe we just would have lied about all of this. How about this example, if that's not recent enough for you? For the last 80 years, you were a complete and total kook. You were bastardized, scarlet lettered from society. You were removed from platforms of significance even before we had a big tech. If you believed in UFOs, and now after 80 years of denying it, the government wants to tell us that yes, UFOs are real. But you're right. They don't ever lie. People in government don't ever lie about anything. If that is an objection you're receiving, I would urge you to never, ever attempt an intelligent conversation with that person ever again. Move on. That person, whoever would say that person is gone. Not to mention that the guy we're talking about actually admitted he lied about. Well, there's that trivial codicil. Thank you, Todd. Yes. Number 3. It would have been even worse if they hadn't done these things. Now, what do you call this? The
unfalsifiability fallacy.
Yes, I love that term. Okay, and this came up on C-SPAN yesterday, and I'll say what I said on C-SPAN yesterday. I can see why people would have this argument, and it would be a potent argument without a control group, right?
Correct.
Do we have a control group?
We've had one all along.
Yeah, we've had one all along. In fact, they get an entire chapter in the book, and that control group is Sweden. Sweden is the control group that proves that is simply not true. And we could cite, so much data out of Sweden. I'll just boil it down to the most important stat of them all. In 2020, Sweden saw 7% higher excess deaths than its previous 4-year rolling average. The rest of the European Union, which did far greater lockdowns, mitigation efforts, Sweden has the lowest mask usage compliance in all of the EU. The rest of the European Union averaged between 12 and 18% of excess deaths. That's game, set, match. That's Pete Sampras in his heyday, taking you down in straight sets. Okay? All right? That's Nadal playing him on the clay. Good night, good luck. That's calling Mariano out of the bullpen in the 9th at Yankee Stadium, get an early start on traffic. We're done here. All right, we're done. That's the only stat that really matters. I could do an entire book on just Sweden, but really, that's the only stat that matters, really. You came to the concert. House of the Holy is great. Kashmir's phenomenal. It's my personal favorite, right? You want to hear a little Black Dog, a little rock and roll, a little Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, a little No Quarter, a little Dire Maker. But really, we're all here for Stairway to Heaven, right? Is that not what we're all here? We're here to flick our bics for Stairway to Heaven. It's why we're all here, okay? So I could play you the entire Sweden song catalog, but the Stairway to Heaven is that stat right there. So now we know that that is not true. A fourth common objection that you may hear. We should just keep wearing masks if it makes other people to feel better. What other lies are you willing to perpetuate in order to make others feel better? I believe there's a commandment somewhere about not bearing false witness. Is that in there? I believe somewhere in the number one bestsellers of all time. Yeah, that's what they were, right? The 10 codicils. They were not the 10 commandments or even suggestions, the 10 technicalities. You know, just in cases. I mean, that's what they were, right? You know, if you can make it works. I think that's what they were.
10 did God really say?
Yes. We don't. If me bearing false witness is what makes you feel better, then I'm not here to make you feel better.
This makes me want to throw up. This one really does.
Yes.
It makes me want to vomit. I hear this from people even somewhat close to me who said, well, we just want to be aware of our Christian witness. We don't want our neighbors to see, they're flouting these things just to flout them.
Flouting what?
Flouting
science,
data. Yeah, I don't understand that. It makes me want to throw up because, as you pointed out correctly there, I don't think embracing a lie necessarily helps my Christian witness, does it?
No.
But then there might be some conflict, and conflict is bad.
Listen, if there was data that showed that the mask works, first of all, some of you may have forgotten this. I was one of the very first people in the country with a platform to suggest the day after the lockdowns began, why don't we just not do lockdowns and wear masks? Do you guys remember that?
Of course I do.
Do you remember that? All right. I was one of the very first people to suggest this as a strategy. And all of the healthcare professionals said and showed all of the data that showed masks don't work. So that won't work. That's why we didn't talk about it again on the show until it became a politicized issue last summer. And then I even gave the masks a second chance. Remember, I said we should maybe make a deal. We will do national mask compliance in the month of July. Remember this?
Yes.
Because if they won't work, if we can't kill off a respiratory virus in the heat of the summer, then the masks will never work, right? So we'll wear masks for 30 days in July and let's see where we are, right? Did I not?
Right.
I have actually tried to accommodate this because I don't believe we are entitled to not be inconvenienced when human life is at stake, especially on a mass scale. Repeat after me. They don't work. If they did work, we'd had a lot of different conflicts, conversations. We might have even been arguing with each other about this for the past year. Who knows? Okay. But the good news is we don't ever have to know the answer to that because they don't work. It's a lie. It's a talisman. It's an idol. It doesn't work any more than, building a figurine of wood to Aphrodite. It doesn't work. They don't work. Say it with me now. One more time for the folks in the back. They don't work.
And also, why does this not apply in reverse? I have the same problem with this one. The woman who doesn't want to go in a public restroom and have a tranny walk in on her, if she says, I would just feel better, and she's got a much better case, she's told she's a bigot. Why does it not work both ways?
It almost never works both ways when cults are concerned, my friend. Number 5. I just don't want to believe what's in that book. Well, have you been able to prove? I used to do this when I used to vet Republicans like Romney and stuff in the primaries, and people would say, "I just don't want to believe it. I just don't believe any of that's true." What did I tell them? Okay, fine. If I've said anything untrue, if any of these footnotes, citations, references are inaccurate or false, by all means, bring them to our attention. Have you been able to prove any of them are false? There's over 200 of them. In fact, there's more footnotes and references and citations in the book than actual pages. So can you prove that any of those are false? Furthermore, which ones were you able to prove are untrue? We're waiting. Still waiting. The point of this exercise here is to flesh out false objections. You want to expose. We all don't have more time, right? So we want to help you expose who's a cultist, who's a critical thinker, so that you don't waste what precious little time you have on cultists. A cult is good a cult. When you run into a cultist, just kick the dust off your sandals and move on to the next town. It's not worth the salt in your tears, the droplets in your aerosols. It's just not worth it whatsoever. There's not enough time. All right. And hey, you may be disappointed to find out, wow, there's a lot of drones out here. At least now you know. At least now you know. All right. Work on people that are workable. Don't waste your time on people who aren't. You guys have any thoughts on that?
Oh, go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, I think going back to the very beginning of that, I think there are drones and then there are cultists. Drones are the ones who don't want to admit what really happened, but might be persuadable. The cultists, there's no persuading them. Again, asking questions, maybe you can penetrate their hardened shell. But going back to the first point, I don't believe, or maybe it was the second point there, I don't believe that they would have lied about all of this. That's the bleeding heart. I just don't want to believe that. It's not that I don't believe they would have. I don't want to believe that they would have lied. That's what they're really asking. So know the difference between a drone and a cultist. There are a lot of drones out there wearing our jerseys as well that don't want to admit, just like Cornelius Fudge in Harry Potter, Steve at stevedeace.com, don't want to admit, like Cornelius Fudge, that Voldemort is actually back. And it requires conflict to wake them up.
That last one, number 5, is the alpha and the omega of all this. I just don't believe it. Listen, especially with the self-styled smart set. Listen, I've been around these people in education and journalism. You just have to, I know you're too smart to believe a lot of this, and it's obvious that I can prove you as a liar. Just admit it. You just want to believe this stuff. That's it.
They're like Mel Gibson in the movie Ransom. Give me back my son. Yeah. Give me back my scam. Give me back my panic.
Yep.
I mean, that's...
You want it.
You want it. It's a cult. So just move on and go to people who might actually listen. Hour 2 is next. And we're back with Hour 2, live and on demand here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here alongside Todd Erzin, Aaron McIntyre, and all of you. Don't forget to let us know what you think about what we think. You can email the program, steve at stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook. Also follow us at Steve Deace Show on Twitter. Look for Steve Deace as well on MeWe, Gab, and Parler. And if you're looking for clips of the program that you can watch for free later on, and then hopefully you'll share those with other people so that they will come and learn about us as well, go to youtube.com/Steve Deace or rumble.com/Steve Deace Show. I haven't done this yet, by the way. I need to say thank you. It looked early on like we were going to get overridden by one-star trolls for Faucian Bargain, but in the last several days, you guys have come out with a vengeance with those 5-star reviews. So thank you very much. We're over 400 reviews now for the book, which has only been out for a week. 90% of them are 5-star reviews. So thank you very much for each and every one of those. A few of you gave 4-star reviews. I guess we'll let you slide. Thank you very much for all of those as well. All right. So you can get your copy today over at Amazon.com, where it continues to outsell Hunter Biden. Our publisher texted us last night to tell us, hey, you guys are higher than Hunter Biden, to which I was surprised to learn that you could be higher than Hunter Biden. Anyway, for the rest that's gone on with the rest of the program, when it comes to car and home insurance, we all deserve better. I know I do. That's why I put my policy to the test and turned to Gabby, which literally stands for Get a Better Insurance. The way it works, you log on and find out, are you getting the best price for the best coverage that you qualify for? And hey, if you've got the best plan you can get, it was funny when I put my information in, they actually recommended the exact plan from Safeco that we currently have. And so if you've got the best that you can get for where you're at, where you're rated, if you got the best that you can get in the market, Gabby will tell you that as well. But wouldn't you like to know that? Wouldn't you like to know? It's because that's one of those bills you pay it sometimes once a year, once every few months, and you don't even think about the fact, what, am I paying too much for this? Well, Gabby can help you to find out. The average Gabby customer saves $960 per year on average. They never sell your data or info either. So no annoying spam or robocalls robocalls will follow you signing up with Gabby. It's fast. Put your policy to the test, just like I did. See if you can get better insurance with Gabby. Totally free to check out, and there's no obligation. Just go to Gabby, G-A-B as in boy, I, G-A-B-I, Gabby.com/Deace, D-E-A-C-E. That's Gabby.com/Deace. Well, some of you, particularly if you watch a couple of programs on Fox News, may have heard about this viral music video that was made right here in our backyard. Here's a clip.
We said we gotta hold on to what we got. Doesn't make a difference if we make it or not. We got each other, and that's a lot for love. We'll give it a shot. Oh, halfway there, yeah. Living on a prayer. Take my hand, we'll make it, I swear, yeah. Living on a prayer. Living on.
Well, the two individuals on opposite ends of that song join us here now because they're right here from our neck of the woods. The gentleman here to my left, you've met him before. He was our guest on our show last summer. He's a community activist and a guy really working to break down walls here in Central Iowa. Will Keeps, good to see you again, brother. How are you?
Man, it's good to see you, man.
You got some reaction last time you were on here on the show, right?
I did, man. It was some good reactions, man. I wish I would have stayed a little bit longer.
Well, we weren't sure until you came on more than 10 or 12 people watched this thing. And then after you came on, we found out it's at least 13 or 14.
Wow.
Yeah, so thank you very much.
I got one more.
Yeah, you helped us grow. We appreciate that.
That's what's up.
All right, the officer to my right is Officer Mike Moody. And Mike, it is a pleasure, officer, to have you with us. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
So let's reset who everybody is. We'll kind of refresh, since we've already been down the longer road with you, and we want to give him more time because he's new. Kind of give us the Cliff's Notes Reader's Digest version. Who's Will Keeps?
Will Keeps is a father, a musician, a activist. I just built me a school now, so I'll probably have me a school, a charter school real soon. I'm a person who loves to bring people together. I'm a person who loves to heal, you know, and we talked about this before. I get a lot of backlash for doing it, but you know, I'm going to be the person that I am so I can sleep good at night. So I'm going to heal, bring us together.
So you don't really labels, all those sorts of things, those excuses we use. It was interesting. I don't know. Did you watch the Final Four over the weekend?
Yeah, I watched a little bit of it. I watched the UCLA one.
All right. Did you see Charles Barkley's comments in between games? Barkley, well, they had brought up the controversy about whether Major League Baseball was going to move its All-Star game with the voting law in Georgia, and that lent itself to a broader conversation about race relations in America. And Barkley essentially said, listen, man, I'm successful. I've been all over the country. I've met a lot of people, black and white. The vast majority of people, regardless of how they look, really want the same things for their children and grandchildren. And a lot of these things are really just divisions that are exploited from a lot of people on both sides of the aisle because it's politically advantageous for them to do so. And I kind of thought about you when I heard him say that, because that's what I see you do, which is essentially it's a very outcome-based approach, which is if you want to help, then we'll take your help. Period. In a sentence. Right?
We'll take your help. I'm all about people. I'm not about labels. I'm not about, Democrat, Republicans, white, black. Who wants to help bring us together? Who wants to help our kids? Who wants to help our families? Who? You know what I mean? That's what I'm about. I get criticized for that because a lot of people don't like that I work with the police. They don't like that I work with the government, the Republicans. They don't like it. But my thing is that if I'm not going to wait for a Democrat, I'm not going to wait for a black person or whoever to help me. I'm going to get the help from the people who's ready to help me right now. So if a Democrat, Republican, black, white, Latino, Asian is ready to help me bring people together and help our kids and help our families, let's go.
Officer Moody, tell us a little bit about you. You were talking to us some of your background working in law enforcement. Can you share that with our audience?
Yeah, I've been a policeman for a little over 32 years. My father was a policeman. My brother was a policeman. My sister married a policeman, so it's kind of in the blood. But I've done an array of different jobs at the police department. I was on the SWAT team for a while. I was in the gang unit for a while. I worked as an SRO at a few of our schools here in Des Moines. And that's pretty much my background. Right now I'm working up in the Skywalk, which is pretty quiet.
Yeah. Well, and it turns out that you can sing a little bit as well, right? Are you getting all kinds of karaoke challenge invitations now?
I don't do karaoke at all.
You're not the ringer they're calling in? You're not bringing them in? All right. So how did you meet this guy? How did you two meet?
When I was an SRO a few years ago, we have a program through the Des Moines Police Department that's called the Second Chance Program. And what that is when kids get in trouble and we have a choice as a police officer to arrest them, issue them a ticket, give them a warning. It depends on the seriousness of the crime and it depends on their attitude a lot. But we have one other choice, which was a Second Chance Program. And it's put on by the Des Moines Police Department. And what we do is we take them for a 40-hour class for 1 week on spring vacation or winter break or whatever. And they have to attend these classes. And one of the classes was Will coming out and speaking to these kids. And I was fortunate enough to sit through one of his classes and actually listen to what he had to say to these guys. And I was completely blown away.
Will, can you share kind of a snippet of what that message was?
Basically, it's not about what you've been through, but it's how you get through. We all go through something in our life, and I'm teaching these kids how to get through, not let their tragic situations or things that happen in their life dictate how they move in a negative way.
And how have you, in your own life, put that to good use? I mean, what have you had to overcome?
I overcome being molested at 7 years old, being left for dead at 15 years old, being in a sense abandoned by my parents sometimes. I went through so many deaths, friendships, of family members, even people that I've mentored, you know what I'm saying, in my life. And it's been devastating to see so many people die that I knew. And I told myself, I can't be this person who wants to destroy because of what I've been through. I have to be this person who wants to heal. And I felt like when I was molested at 7 years old that I lost who I was. And now at the age I am today and the work that I'm doing today, I feel like I'm becoming the person I was before I was molested. It's like it's coming back. I'm being that person I'm supposed to be. And a lot of these kids, they are good kids. And I want them to understand that. So I want to build something for them so they can understand how good they are.
Your hefty decades of experience, Mike, working on the police force. Is there, I don't know if you guys knew who the late, great Chuck Colson was, but he ran a great ministry called Prison Fellowship all over the country. And towards the end of his life, I had the honor of getting to interview him. And he himself went to prison for Watergate, had a religious conversion there, turned his entire life around, and Prison Fellowship was the ministry he founded to go into prisons and minister to people who also he thought needed a second chance. Right. And one of the things that Chuck said to me in this interview is that if there was one trend that he could say was a commonality on every death row he'd ever been to all over the country, it was, who's your dad? And either they didn't know, or my dad's also in a place like this, and I'd been better off probably not knowing, right? If you're decades in law enforcement, now you're on the community engagement side of it as well. Is there a common theme or thread that you can see in your experience, anything along those lines?
Pretty much the same thing. I mean, when I was an SRO at Roosevelt, that's a local high school here in Des Moines, by the way. Yeah. I had a lot of kids that would come in my office and just sit down and talk with me and build a relationship because I was a male role model to them because they didn't have anything else available to them. And those were kids that were coming in every single day just wanting to talk, just wanting to build a relationship. And, that was probably the greatest job I had on the Des Moines Police Department.
So you guys meet when he is speaking, as one of the speakers to your program. What happens after that?
I talked to Will right after that because at the end of his program, he plays some of his music videos that he's done, which are awesome. They're amazing, and I was very taken back.
You brought it on that harmony there. I mean, that was pretty impressive, brother.
Thanks,
I got to tell you that.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I cracked 8,000 times.
Did you? So we only saw the take that actually worked.
Right.
We didn't see all the ones that sucked. We just saw the only one that worked.
Take one, take two, take three, take four.
Take 8,000 is one hell of a take. You need to know that. All right, but go ahead.
Yeah,
Mike.
we both made our mistakes on that. So, but I talked to him afterwards, and I said, hey, I play a little music and I sing a little bit. I said, we should get together sometime. And I don't think he thought there was much there for perspective. I think he just kind of went, yeah, sure, we'll do it. And we didn't do it. Well, I was lucky enough to somebody videotaped me playing in the Skywalk. There's a gentleman that plays a guitar up in the Skywalk every day. And I asked him if I could play his guitar one day, and I just played like 10 seconds of a song, and somebody videotaped it.
What song was it?
Wanted Dead or Alive, another Bon Jovi song.
See, that's one of my all-time, that would be like in my all-time top 10.
Yeah.
You're a cowboy and a steel horse you ride, Mike.
Amen.
Yeah, I knew that about you when you walked in. Right. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I played like 10 seconds of it. Some guy videotaped it. I didn't even know he was videotaping it, and he put it online, and it just took off. And I think Will seen it, and...
No, it was before that, because we was working on Living on a Prayer before the Skyline thing happened.
Were we?
Yeah, because we did it at your friend's house a while ago. We recorded it there.
I thought that was after. I could be wrong. I don't know why Will came around to finding that I had some talent, but no, I'm just kidding. I just think it's a great thing that, we both came up with the idea. We both sat down and said, look, what do we want to do? And originally, Will had mentioned he wanted to do Wanted Dead or Alive. And I was like, well, that might not be a good theme for us to do.
I can see where that could be problematic.
I'm a cowboy.
So we decided to go with Living on a Prayer. And we kind of changed it up a little bit, kind of made it our own. Will even added some rap into it. And the rest is history. I mean, it kind of took off.
What did you guys want this project? What was the hope? Was it just meant to be fun and then it just took off a life on its own, or is there a purposeful audience or message there that you were trying to convey with this?
We wanted people to know that it's beautiful working together. Like a black man with a do-rag on his head can work with a police officer. It's like I just want people to know that we're not all enemies, that we're not all fighting each other. I always tell people all the time, I say, if a bad cop or a black person did something bad, a white person did something bad, whoever, say their name instead of saying the whole crew. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
So Mike is a good guy. Mike may have made some mistakes in his life. I made some mistakes in my life. Me and Mike might disagree on some things, but me and Mike agree on a lot of things. Me and Mike decided to say, look, we're going to actually come together and show people that we can disagree. We can probably dislike some things that's going on, but we will work together and show people that it is possible for us to heal.
I love the emphasis you placed there on treating people as individuals. You talked earlier about the trauma of your childhood, the lost sense of identity that came out of that, and trying to recover. The reason we have so much craving for identity as a species is because that's also where we get a notion of what our purpose is here. What's the point of our being on the earth, right? And you feel like that's been recovered with the work that you're doing now, which I would really say is a form of a ministry, is kind of what you're doing right now. And what concerns me, and I say this, I don't want to be one of those people, well, the media does, I work in the media. I have a pretty large platform in the media. I'm part of the media. So we in the media do too much of this, regardless of what side of the aisle we're on or what ideological slant we have. It is interpreting the news or stories through the slant of how a particular group will see it, as if everybody is a monolith. Everybody just thinks monolithically. It's just one giant group think. And as opposed to, hey, what does a guy named Will, who lives in Des Moines, Iowa, What does he think? What does a guy named Steve who lives in Des Moines, Iowa think? What's a guy named Mike who lives in Des Moines, Iowa think? Not say, what do these two white guys think and what's the black guy think?
And
what do these individuals think?
And if we're fighting for equality and freedom of speech, how come we can't have it? How come you can't have it? How come you can't have it, Mike? You know what I mean? Like, how come when I decide to literally show people that we can actually work together and say together is so much better, how come I'm getting criticized for that? And the crazy thing is the people that's criticizing me is my own people. Most of the people are my own people criticizing me. They literally call me a traitor. And that hurts. That hurts to know that my own people is not actually seeing the vision, that you're saying that you want the government to help us. You want the police to understand us. So when I put this all together and it's actually working and it's coming together, it's like you want to criticize it. You want to beat it up. You want to destroy it. Is it because it's not you doing it? Is it because it's somebody else doing it? Is it because I'm not doing it your way? I thought the whole thing was to do it, to make it happen.
Do you want to win? Or do you want to wait until we only win the way that you're comfortable with winning?
And that might take never.
Right.
So why not join someone who's actually bringing people together and we're doing it in a way where we're actually happy?
Let me turn the conversation back around here, Mike. On your end. So you come from generations of cops.
Right.
You're a grizzled veteran.
Right.
Okay.
Grizzled.
Did you like that?
The grizzled?
Yeah, I thought that's a nice way of saying you've done your job for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. But, he talked about trying to overcome some of the tribalism on his side of this divide. Is there any on your side as an officer? Hey, we've done these kinds of things before. They don't work. It's a revolving door. We arrest the same people over and over again. They come out. The rate of recidivism, we know what it is, right? This time it won't work. Do you have to fight some of that cynicism on your own end of this equation?
Absolutely. Here's the crazy part. I think when what happened in Minneapolis with the officer that knelt on the guy's neck, I think that was probably the most that the United States was unified at any time any time ever. Everyone in the country thought that was wrong. Every policeman, every white guy, every black guy, every Asian, everyone in the country thought that was wrong. And it was the most we were unified. And somehow it turned into splitting us even more. It angers me because somehow I got thrown into you're this guy because
now
that
you're
guy
labeled.
Yeah.
It's like you've done nothing else in your career other than you're associated with an incident that took place 3.5 hours from where you served.
Right.
Yeah.
But on the other side, other people feel that way about police officers, that they judge other people because of maybe the color of their skin or whatever. But these are the kind of things that Will and I sit down and talk about. This is what you can't sit down with everyone you agree with and fix a problem, because if you agree on everything, there's nothing to solve.
Exactly. Yeah.
You have to be able to sit down with people who are different than you or might have different views than you to get things productive and get them fixed.
I can tell you, as somebody, when I first got into this business of media, I'm pretty confident and assured in my belief system. Otherwise, I would have a different belief system, right? But I loved testing it. I probably, I put the fun in fundamentalist. I like to say, Mike. But I probably did 50 appearances on MSNBC. I'd be the lone conservative on the panel, and so it would be me, a balanced panel on MSNBC was a left-wing host, 3 other left-wingers, and then me. All right, and then you always talked last. Yeah, all right, while they soaked up all the oxygen in the room, I heavily enjoyed it. I liked the contest. As long as I was free to give my opinion and back it up, I don't mind being outnumbered. I like testing what I think up against what you think, because if it doesn't stand up to your scrutiny, then I might want maybe what I think is wrong.
Right.
But we have gotten to the point that even in the last few years, they would never, after inviting me on 50 times, they'd never invite me on now. This thing has become so tribalistic. There can be, I had a chance to do an hour on C-SPAN yesterday. It was the first opportunity I've had in a few years after seeking them out, to actually solicit contrary, opposing viewpoints, and where I had to actually respond to them. Yeah. There's this notion that all we do is argue and debate all the time. I would actually make the case we don't argue and debate at all. Right. We call each other names on social media. We troll the hell out of each other. Mm-hmm. And then we call that an argument, and no idea was even exchanged. Right. And then when someone does have a different idea and they display it passionately, you immediately, since you don't know what an argument is, you immediately think we're being threatened. No, they just have a lot of conviction in what they have to say. You're welcome to show the same conviction. It just seems like outlets that we have to express these differences, we're silencing them today. And if you keep putting those pressures points and those tensions underneath the surface, eventually they're going to boil over.
Right, right. And I think some people have a belief that as long as they're louder and more out of control, the more right they are, and that's not necessarily.
Which causes fear.
I emote, therefore I am, basically.
Yeah. Which causes fear for others to speak up.
Right, right.
Because they're not that way. They're not that person that's loud. And my thing is that I'm telling the world, it's 5%. I'm just coming up with these numbers. 5% of
They're
people
probably
out there,
every bit as accurate as a lot of the data my audience has been exposed to in the last year. So go ahead.
Like this: 5% of people out there who are hateful and want to divide and loud at doing it. 95% of us really want to bring us together. How come we not getting louder? We can crush the 5%.
Mm-hmm. You can
Stop being afraid.
You can tell that just by the video. I mean, there were so many comments on our video that we did, and 95% of them were positive.
Yeah,
you're going to get that 5% who they don't want to see us work together. They don't want to see us fix this problem.
And that's why we said what we said at the end of the video. I said, some people ain't gonna like this. And you said,
yeah.
I was you spoiled. I was saving that question for the end. I was watching the clock because I want to ask you about the end. What were you doing 5 years ago? 5 years ago, I was I was working for the post office, you know what I mean? And I was working in the schools as well. All right, the reason I bring that up, because if I went back to 2016, Will Keeps, and said, hey man, you're going to get featured on the Sean Hannity show on Fox News tonight. 2016, Will Keeps probably been like, first of all, what the hell is a Sean Hannity?
Who's Sean Hannity?
Yeah, exactly. All right. But secondly, then when you found out, you're like, no way that's happening.
Right.
But it actually went down. So you spoiled I
got criticized for that too.
Well, you spoiled the lead, or at least the conclusion. I wanted to ask you guys about how the video ends. Mm-hmm. All right. You guys have a very, and you have to listen carefully to it, all right? But there's a very important, poignant, a brief conversation the two of you have at the end of the video. Can you just kind of share that with the audience?
I literally said because I already know a lot of people are going to hate it, you know what I mean? So I was like, a lot of people are going to hate this, right?
And I said, yeah, but most are going to love it.
Mm-hmm. And you was right, you know what I mean? Because we want people to understand that we're not caring. We're going to do what we got to do.
And I truly believe that people want this fixed. I think the majority of people, and the vast majority of people, want this fixed. Mm-hmm. So that's why we get people saying, oh man, I got goosebumps from that song. Oh man, I can't believe a policeman and this former gang member did this. And
right.
I think it makes people feel good. I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. And I think people really want that. I would find it hard to believe that they don't.
But I ain't gonna lie. I was like, wow, there's so many people actually love this. Mm-hmm. I got messages from all over the world. Like, thank you. Like, it gave me goosebumps. I was crying. It was some black folks too that was like some kid said to Sean Hannity.
Yeah.
Said, I can't believe you even post this. I'm kind of proud of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I didn't know what they was talking about. I'm like, why wouldn't he post this? Mm-hmm. What type of person is he? You know what I'm saying? Why are they trying to say this about this dude?
Right.
But he posted it, and I was like, thank you, period. I wasn't going to go back in his past and be like, well, what he said this or he said that. No, I was just like, thank you, Sean.
I want to do a routine background check of what rap lyrics he tweeted when he was 14 at some middle school and end his life.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate you posting that. Because it showed the world that you are not everything they say you are.
Yeah. And he's willing to help. Like we said,
you're willing to bring people together. Yeah. And I'm cool. And that's all I needed. So when people come to me with the negative part of it, mm-hmm. I'm like, yo, he shared it. I didn't ask him to. He shared it. Thank you.
Not to mention, hey, if you think it somehow someone's support of this conflicts with what they've said and done in the past, you know who has to reconcile that? They do. Why are you questioning me about it?
Right.
I'm not responsible for what they said and did in the past.
Right.
If it doesn't reconcile, you think it's contradictory, then you have to go ask them why that's the case.
Just like you, Steve.
Yeah.
Thank you. You shared it. Thank you. This is positive. This is healing. We need more people to share it, to give healing. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome. Thank you guys for doing it.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool when I saw it.
Thank you.
You know, you guys actually do sing really well.
Well, he does.
Yeah. Now he's just showing off and getting cocky.
Well,
all right?
I was playing.
No, but you guys, it's not just. It would have had a certain audience if it had a schmaltz or cheese factor to it, you know. Yeah. But it's the fact that you guys actually pull off a tough song to sing, you know.
You know, and I think I'm very lucky that it's in my vocal range, but he has a heck of a lot better range than I do. He can, sing the
Stop
harmonies.
playing, man. As soon as your voice come on, people like, who was that? They talk about your voice more than mine. Well, they talk about my harmony. They talk about your voice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We just want Bon Jovi to see it and, maybe help us out a little bit with this.
All right, so we got about a minute here left. What's the next step then after you got attention all over the country, all over the world for this video? So what happens now? What's the next thing?
We just keep progressing. Hopefully, this is what we want. We want to be able to sit down with people and talk about it and express why we did it, what's happening with it and where it's going. People have asked if we're going to do another song. I don't know. We might do that, but for right now, we want to work on the problem at hand. And this kind of took us, like I said, it took us that first step in the right direction. And hopefully we can get some things done.
Gentlemen, thank you both for being here. We got to go. It was a pleasure. Congrats on the success of the video as well.
Thank you.
We'll come back. Pop Culture Tuesday is up next. Stay tuned. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show. You guys were silent that entire half-hour conversation. I definitely, before we move on to Pop Culture Tuesday, definitely got to get you guys' take on that. And I just got a nice email from J.M. Paul who says, Will Keeps and Officer Moody 2024. Of course not, but we could use more genuine guys like those two praying for their success in bringing people together. So you guys' thoughts, listening to the conversation we just had with Officer Moody and Will Keeps, and who put together that video, their take on Living on a Prayer, went viral, was discussed, I think, on both Hannity and Fox and Friends. I think both shows on Fox, two of their highest rated shows, talked about it. What'd you think, Todd, sitting over there listening to it?
Well, there are words and there are deeds, but then there's just authenticity. That is as real as it gets. And in a world of fake everything, you get around it, and you could feel like they didn't even necessarily trust what they just did what they believed to be the right, the good, the true, and the beautiful. And boy, did it bloom, because people are starving for it. We talked about steak versus Cheez-Its. They still want steak. They just never see it. They don't know what it looks like anymore. It's just some phantasm that they've been told about, and they can't believe it might be real. Yeah. It's real, and
good
you
choice
saw
of
it.
words.
We talk about saying no all the time, and the importance and growing importance in the future of saying no. Those are two guys who said no. Now, I'm not talking about in this instance of defying the courts, defying stupid flat earth voodoo coronavirus mitigation efforts. I'm talking about the type of no that they said, like Katniss and Peeta did in the end of the first Hunger Games, where they were put in a Kobayashi Maru. You have to kill the other guy. You have to kill the other person. Only one can come out the winner. And they just said no. They said no. They called the bluff. See, that's Charles Barkley is right. Whatever you want to call the causes of this, I'm not going to get into that right now. The causes that that so proliferate within our divisions in our culture, whatever the causes are, you know them, I know them. Those are by design. Those are by design. whether it's our fallen nature as human beings, that's a big part of it, or whether it's forces within this culture who seek to benefit from dividing us. There's only one way to get around that, and that's by saying no. I'm not going to play in to the false choice that you've given me. And Will keeps Officer Moody. They're two guys who just said, no, we're going to do this together. We're not going to play into these false choices. We're going to show what actual unity talks about, not the hippy dippy stuff where I sacrifice everything about who I am to be unified. That's a really powerful picture that they painted, and good on them. That's about the most mild way that I can put it.
To hear, Will talk about, listen, I just want to help the community I serve and live in. And if you want to help us, I mean, basically when all Aaron, I don't care if you're a vegan, pansexual, lizard person, we'll take the help, right? And that's a lot of our approach here on our own show. It's all I care about right now. If something that's vitally important right now, do we agree? And if we do, then we can work together right now. And we'll worry about whether we can work again in the future later on when something else vitally important comes up. And if we don't agree, then we won't. We'll be opposed. And if we were opposed to each other on the past vitally important thing and we agree on the new one, then we'll work together on that one. It's why I'm sitting here with messages in my inbox from Naomi Wolf of all, I did that exercise with Will Keep. Say 5 years ago, someone comes up to you and says, dude, you're on Sean Hannity tonight. He'd have first of all been like, what in the Sam Hills of Sean Hannity, right? If you'd have gone to 2016 Steve Deace and said, hey, you'd be Twitter pen pals with Naomi Wolf, I'd have been like, come on, man, that's just never happening. But it's the Shakespeare line, politics makes for strange bedfellows. And I think that we're going to have to cross some of these ideological picket lines. That doesn't mean going against what you believe in, but is the picket line you're behind really advancing what you believe in? That's what it really means. That's what Will did. Will didn't really necessarily change what he thinks and believes about a lot of things. Just looked around and realized that a lot of the people that claimed they believed and cared about the same things weren't doing a damn thing about them. Mm-hmm. So he decided, I still believe in these things. I actually believe in them. So I'm going to go where people are going to help me do something about it. That's what it means. If Naomi Wolf right now cares more about the Constitution than some of even my fellow peers in conservative media do, then I'm going to work with Naomi Wolf on defending the Constitution. I didn't change what I believed at all. Mm-hmm. She just decided at this moment she believed the same thing that I did.
This speaks to the importance of your point about the absurdity of the routine background check of what you did as a 14-year-old alone as your mantra. Mm-hmm. Because yes, we should be wise as serpents, know who we're dealing with. But the problem is we're never innocent as doves then. We never allow that breaking of bread you're talking about.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yep. That's a good transition because there's a lot of this is original thinking in America today. This idea that we move and transcend our silos, and I just go with who I agree with at that particular time. That's not in an increasingly balkanized culture. Now, for me, we moved a lot when I was a kid. So I was the new kid in school all the time. I was discounted, distrusted all the time. I had to make new friends all the time. So it's what's weird for me is the fact we've lived in the same house for 15 years and my kids have primarily only have been able to grow up in one place. That is weird to me. Okay. It's home to them. That's weird to me. So I'm not uncomfortable at all going into different environments and places. I had to do it when I was a kid all the time. I got conditioned to do that. But as we grow increasingly balkanized, we have to be careful we don't also become homogenized at the exact same time. Because that's when we lose our critical thinking. And that brings me to Pop Culture Tuesday. So the kids are older now. In fact, we're moving. Our oldest, Anna, she's moving out this weekend and Daddy is sad. Daddy's sad. Now, she's literally moving 5 minutes away in an apartment complex, okay? But
oh, I know.
To me, it feels like she's moving to the 48th parallel, right? Okay? So it's a sad day because, she's very happy about it, obviously, but so I'm happy for her, not happy for me. But that leaves us with 2. And, family movie night now, we're not quite ready for them to watch all the stuff that maybe, even though they're older, it's not that they can't handle it. We just aren't really comfortable watching certain things with your kids. You know what I'm saying? So we're at that age now where can we find something that everybody's entertained by that doesn't, bore people or think it's too young and immature. And so we came up with an idea. How about if we went back and just for nostalgia, so like one of Anna's final movie nights a couple weeks ago, she wanted to do High School Musical again because of how often her and I used to sing the karaoke's of that when I would come home at night. Every night we had to sing all those songs for years, okay? And so we watched the original High School Musical again. Zoe decided she wanted to watch the original Lego Movie again. So we watched it for family movie night on Sunday. Brother, I gotta tell you, that'll preach, okay? I mean, that was the best sermon I've heard since Ricky Jenkins. We played that message on our show. That wasn't a sermon. That movie was prophesying. Now I'd not seen it all the way through in several years, all right? So I didn't remember a lot of this. I remembered the humor and the sarcasm and things of that nature. The message at the end about the dad who's too busy, with his stuff to, which of course for me as a dad was hit me in a good spot. That was cool. But Emmett has none of his own ideas. All of his ideas are fed to him by the state and popular culture. Straight up, man. Straight up. Everything he thinks, he just directly downloads from either the state or pop culture. The government is controlled by an oligarchical or even monarchical alliance of statists and corporatists.
It's a police state.
Yes. Yes. And with the corporatist at the top of the chain, President Business, right?
Yes.
Emmett's favorite restaurants. Now listen, I am the ugly American, okay? But dude, if you've got, give me the local steakhouse like in every community where I know everything's made fresh if I had an option. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Favorite restaurant, national chains. That's his answer. His answer was national chains. He didn't even have one. He couldn't even pick one that he liked the most. His answer was national chains. That was his answer. He has no original thoughts. He's never thought to have an original thought. He is, we've used this term already today, he's a drone. And as I'm watching this, and no one else has any original thoughts either. They're all just doing what everybody else tells them to do.
You're supposed to be a useful idiot.
Yes.
And happy about it.
We all watch, Honey, Where's My Pants? Because that's what everybody else watches. Everybody listens to the same song. Everybody does the same stuff. I mean, it is, dude, I almost had to go outside and take a breath, man, and pause the film because it is so much where we are at as a people right now. I mean, it's a little thing. Like Clay Travis noted with the conclusion of the college basketball season last night. And yes, I do. We have a clear number one winner in our Final Four pool, by the way, but I can't find their name. Their screen name apparently is
ESPN 11123-.
Yeah, I think it's their phone number. I hope so because I texted that number this morning from my phone. I guess we'll find out who it was. But one person out of almost 1,000 entries won it without the tiebreaker. Won it all by themselves last night with Baylor's win. So when I get the identity of the winner, we'll make sure we give them some props. Okay. But, Clay Travis tweeted this morning, now that the college sports season's basically over. I mean, there will be some interest in the College World Series in June, but for most people, this is the end of the season, right, for college sports. And he's like, we got through the entire college football season. No one got seriously sick. No one died. We got through the end of a college basketball season. No one got seriously sick. Nobody died. And we crowned real champions in both sports, got to the end. Seems like we ought to be like really happy about this.
Yes.
And it does seem like there's a lot of people that probably are, but like are afraid to say that they are for fear of what their mentions will look like if it happens, right?
This is a crucial and fundamental point.
Yeah, this is all in the Lego movie, guys. It's all in the movie. It blew me away. Okay, how much this movie prophesies for an hour and a half.
This is like you and The Dark Knight, how you've always said if that wasn't a movie about a cape and a cowl, it would be an instant Oscar.
Yes.
You're like,
it was about a gritty detective, and Al Pacino or De Niro played the lead role. It's going to win every Best Picture award. Yes.
Yeah, if this wasn't just made out of Legos, this is like the thinker, the chin scratcher that everybody's talking about. Yes.
And that's, to me, don't get me, I want to make sure I say this exactly right, even though I'm probably not going to. The eternal fate and destiny is the primary purpose and interests we should have in every individual, okay? Corporately, though, as a society, there have been great societies that had no interest in a Judeo-Christian ethic, that built some of the 7 wonders of the world, okay? That gave us modern notions or proto-modern notions of mathematics and science. See where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
So they had God-given creativity, ingenuity. They didn't recognize the God that it came from, but they were interested in critically thinking it through and using it to its maximum potential. And look at still the great blessing they have given us as a species outside of orthodoxy, which to me indicates that the real death of a culture ultimately is even more carnal than its spiritual malaise and demise. It's when it gives up on critical thinking. It's when it gives up on trying to be different more. When it gives up on that. When it just settles for whatever it is. That really is that's the death throes of a people.
Well, there's a point in that movie I remember watching. I was like, oh, is this going to take it way off until just accept everybody, love everybody? Because it's got the classic old school astronaut who finally gets to build what he wants to build. But in the end, it doesn't just go be whatever you. It's like, no, in our diversity, we must unite around common, fundamental, undeniable purpose.
Wild Style even says, the female character even says to Emmett, I wanted to be the special.
Yeah.
I wanted that. You know, that I wanted to be someone who was involved in changing the way things are done. I wanted to be a part of that instinct. And it goes to, listen, we could do an entire show of Babylon Bee headlines. We once did an overtime parody or prophecy with Babylon Bee headlines a couple of years ago. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
Where we just took like 20 recent Babylon Bee headlines. Is that a parody of something going on in the news, or is that a prophecy of really who we are as a people? But one of the absolute smartest, most prophetically true Babylon Bee headlines I've ever seen is one they just ran last week. Man who agrees with literally every corporation thinks he's part of the resistance.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening. Conformity now is what is considered revolutionary. Conformity is. You know, the idea 20 years ago, no one would have called me on C-SPAN and said, well, the rest of the world did it. Why didn't we? I mean, nobody would have. Not on the Democratic line, Republican. Nobody would have done that. We just would have assumed, well, the rest of the world should be doing what we're doing, as opposed to, why aren't we doing what everybody else is? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's dangerous, because a culture that won't even critically think is very difficult to even spiritually revive. I mean, what do you debate? What do you present to them if the brain's turned off? If there's no reason there, then what are we even evangelizing with at that point? That'll do it for today's show. Back at it again tomorrow, noon to 2 Eastern, right after Glenn Beck here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Until then, John 3:17.